What's good, kings and queens? Hope everyone's doing alright. This week's video is on the slowest hands in boxing. So pretty much, pound for pound, the slowest hand speed you could find in boxing, throughout all the weight classes. With that being said, let's start the video. I'm putting both of these guys together. Both are comically stiff, robotic-like. There's a bit more fluidity with Daniel, but both are incredibly slow. Both stylistically look similar. Daniel a bit more wider in his stance. It's like an old school fighting game with these two. You know, like on the PlayStation 1, by pressing square and select at the same time, you play as Daniel Dubois instead of Joe Joyce. With such flaws, the two make up with respectable punching power and fundamentals. Pretty much every notable fight Glenn has been in, he was fighting at a speed disadvantage. I think Hopkins' performance against him really displays the difference in speed when you compare and contrast how fast he looked against Johnson and look at the speed difference between Hopkins and Roy Jones Jr. Glenn will make that up with having a solid foundation of footwork to be able to cut the ring off, great stamina, an underrated jab, timing, a tremendous chin, and punch resistance. In 77 fights, Johnson was only stopped twice in his career. First time was against Hopkins, which was only due to round after round punishment. Johnson never touched the canvas with the fight being stopped in the 11th round. And 17 years later, against future cruiserweight champion Makabu. Fighters who clearly had the speed advantage over him. He will land before they land because his timing was just that good. On top of him throwing the much more tighter, compact shots that was in his range. This gave so many household names over the years a lot of trouble.
Right hand! Big right hand by Johnson. Backs up Froch. Froch fighting off the ropes now.
Yuri Boy is your traditional take 3 shots to land 1 shot guy. So for measurement, Oba Carr was much faster than him, who Ike Corte was even or a hair faster than Carr. Trinidad looked blazing fast against Campos, and De La Hoya early on was just too fast for Tito. So Yuri Boy did end up fighting Oscar. Unfortunately, I can't show the footage and fears of a third-party claim, even though I'm well within fair use, but you'll have to take my word for it. That was an absolute mismatch in the levels of speed. Campos will make that up with an incredible chin, recovery, high punch resistance, a big gas tank, as he will be on you every round. As in virtually every major fight he's been in, he's had a sizable arm length disadvantage, sitting at 68 inches, when all his losses during his heyday were against guys with a 70-inch reach or higher. However, having a reach and a drop of hand speed isn't going to guarantee a win. If you can't handle Yuri's constant pressure, then he will topple over you. Reasons why Yuri Boy was either a champion or of contender status for over a decade. Wright's impeccable defense, timing, and skills effectively cutting the ring off. It really gave the illusion where you couldn't tell how fast he was. Mosley, with some of the most fastest hands in the sport when he was in his prime, was neutralized by Wright. Only a couple second moments, you can see the speed difference between the two. Jermaine Taylor and Bernard Hopkins having more success showing these differences in speed, despite them nowhere near having the speed of Shane.
Unbelievable.
A perfect example of timing and a great defense kills speed. In this back half of the video of these fighters, we're really going in the pound for pound stages of slow. Pongsaklek Wongjongkam started out as a Muay Thai fighter. He was convinced by his manager that he would be a better boxer, which began a Hall of Fame career. Lacking the speed, he had killer timing. Fighting out of a southpaw stance, he was never a stationary target. He was always throwing his shots from all sorts of angles, which were brilliantly timed, giving all his opponents a world of trouble. This resulted in a first round KO win to be the WBC and lineal flyweight champion. Then a year later, the fastest recorded knockout in flyweight championship history, then to become another record holder holding the most consecutive title defenses at flyweight and the WBC champion of the decade. So out of all the WBC champions from the year 2000 to 2010, he was selected as the champion of the decade. In fights where Wongjongkam was not giving angles while in rhythm, you will see the clear difference in speed. In comparison to Naito, who fought him, to Naito's fight with Kameda, Surien saw Rungvisai, who looked incredibly fast against him, then to look incredibly slow against Yota Sato.
チャンスですね。ここで落ち着いて。サムさんから教わったことでサムを右する。あ、来ました。来ました。ダウンに持ち込めるか。ゆっくり。
And Shinsuke Yamanaka.
จากประเทศไทยครับโอ้โหโดนศพท้ายครับนี่เลยครับโอ้โหโดนพอสมควรครับยังมีเวลาครับยังมีเวลา
For the lower weight classes where everyone is somewhat fast, Omar ranks as one of the slowest. Narvaez, like Wonjung Cam, tricky southpaw that gave angles, giving his opponents loads of trouble, practically making himself unbeatable in the weight class, rightfully earning future Hall of Fame status. This was a Plan B type of matchup. Unified Bantamweight champion Nonito Donaire got Narvaez, the WBO Super Flyweight champion, to move up to face him. You really saw the difference in hand speed. This fight right here, unfortunately, I can't show you, but due to Omar's style and underrated defense, Nonito was shut down from getting anything damaging on Omar. Nonito was able to get the shutout on the scorecards based on overall punch count and aggression, as he threw double than Omar. However, Omar landed at a higher percentage and only 25 punches less than Donaire. He will continue to put up more defenses at super flyweight till you will see a massive difference in speed against light flyweight champion Naoya Inoue. Omar has dealt with fighters fast his whole career, and he knew Inoue was fast, but like what David Diaz said about Pacquiao, who dealt with a prime Zab Judah, it's a different type of fast, and you can really see the difference right here. In the 2000s and onward, Trevor has some of the slowest hands in the heavyweight class, but it really wasn't like that at first. Becoming contender, he was relatively average in hand speed.
Hey, juegos artificiales en este primer asalto, despertó Bryan, y ahí sigue tirando Castillo.
Which you wonder, looking at his title fights, how did he even get in such a position? He was much lighter, 30 to 40 pounds lighter. He had an underrated old school jab. He reminded me of a 70s, early 80s era heavyweight. However, with the massive influx of weight, when Bryan won the WBA interim title against BJ Flores, at his leanest weight of 236, fighting in title fights at 267. This sparring footage here is from 2018 against Big Baby Miller. Bryan around this time was in the 230s, and even then, Miller, who looked slower than Daniel Dubois, was faster than Bryan despite it being a light training session. Little intermission here. To help the rest of the good old folks see this video, be sure to hit that like button. YouTube is doing your boy bad right now to not sharing the latest uploads to subscribers. The comment section topic of the video is, what country are you from, and who is the best upcoming talent in your home country? Leave in the comments. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and let's get back to the video. At junior middleweight to middleweight, Kirkland is one of the slowest in the weight class. However, there is someone much slower than him that is at the top of this list. Kirkland's conditioning is what kept him in fights. He was a workhorse, and thanks to Anwolf's traumatizing methods of conditioning, this is literally what kept Kirkland in fights, because his defense was not good. There was nothing slick about him. He just rushed straight forward at you. No threatening jab, no angles, no feints setting up traps. Footwork was not the best. For some reason, he was always cold and dry at the start of fights. However, he possessed heavy hands. He was a solid puncher. He had a massive heart complemented by the conditioning if he got his feet wet and made it out those early rounds to warm up. His opponents were in for an absolute rude awakening, as seen in the Angulo and Tapia fight, both knowing of Kirkland's reputation and did their absolute best to get him out of there early before he warms up. Carlos Molina, who did not have the power or luck of catching Kirkland cold early, met the same fate, but his corner sort of ruined it for him, getting him disqualified. This was Kirkland under Ann Wolf. Kirkland not under Ann Wolf against Nobuhito Ishida. Ishida, a guy who's not known for his speed, looked incredibly fast that night and was able to take Kirkland out before he could get warmed up. The Canelo fight showed on an even high level of speed, even though he is not the fastest at 154 to 160. Despite this being Kirkland's last fight in 2020, I don't know how much speed you can lose at this point because he was never fast to begin with. With the fight broadcast these days being at a much higher native frame rate, it makes his hands look even slower.
I saw him a year ago when I was in Los Angeles training with a couple of fighters of mine, and we noticed a guy over there quietly training by himself. Every day he was at the gym, and they told me he was going to be fighting Zab Judah. So yeah, okay, must have been a joke. I mean, there's nothing that impressive about him.
Carlos is definitely up there on the list of some of the slowest hands in the sport on the world stage.
Yo, mother slow as hell, you know what I'm saying?
What Baldomir had going for him on his come-up was a granite chin, workhorse stamina, and a whole lot of mystery. There was no tapes on this guy, so they didn't know how to deal with him. They were unaware of his rehydration after weigh-ins. Carlos on fight day is rumored to be close to 170 or above 170. Zab Judah, who did not take the matchup seriously, came in ill-prepared against Carlos and lost in a huge upset. Arturo Gatti, when interviewed before his fight with Carlos, knew nothing about him as well. Gatti, who is also known for rehydrating to crazy weights after weigh-ins, had met his match. Gatti, with the clear speed advantage, did not fight the right fight. He didn't try to box Carlos and not trying to load up on every shot. He very well could have taken home the victory and changed the course of history, because that would have made Gatti the ring, lineal, and WBC welterweight champion, a title Floyd will need to get in line to fight Oscar De La Hoya. You truly saw the insane difference in speed when Floyd was matched up against Baldomir. Carlos may have been at his career heaviest this fight, while Floyd came in relatively light, and it showed. Carlos couldn't land a thing on Floyd, with his shots looking like they were underwater. Carlos would move up after Floyd, and whatever advantages he did have was lost right there. Guys were bigger, packed more power, and still faster, with the late great Vernon Forrest running circles around him. Then the nail in the coffin with Canelo doing the same, but knocking him out for the first time in his career since his first year as a pro. Okay, Alfredo Angulo. By far, pound for pound, the slowest hands I've ever seen in this sport. When he fought another fighter from this list, James Kirkland, James looked faster than Angulo, which that is just insane. If the other guys was underwater slow, Angulo is punching in your dreams slow. What makes Angulo so special, he has one of the greatest chins in the sport, complemented with incredibly heavy hands and punching power to go with it. He has a rare combination of both. When Angulo fought Canelo, Canelo was completely outclassing him. However, he was also purposely engaging in infighting with Angulo, even to where he was dropping his hands, challenging Angulo to land on him, which Canelo would brilliantly roll off. Now, the viewer may not look too far into this, but if Canelo made one mistake, he would have been floored. You can see in all these exchanges when it was happening, Canelo's handlers in the front row was just cringing and looking nervous, because you don't do that against a guy with such power. Angulo's defense is really bad. He is there to get hit, which causes opponents to get too comfortable where mistakes are made, and if Angulo lands, you're in a lot of trouble. It reminds me of that ray gun the Moon Knights would shoot in Aqua Team Hunger Force.
Here it comes.
Here it comes.
You will be destroyed.
You're going down.
Nice shot there, Brickout. Now I want you jokers out of this. Oh God, my back!
In this case, don't be a Carl. When I heard that Angulo would be coming to BKFC, I was excited. If Angulo was still the guy I knew from long ago, he is going to catch a lot of people off guard. Now, there have been boxers who have transitioned to BKFC and did not really have the success most would expect, with the exception of Austin Trout, who has brilliantly transitioned to the sport. Being slick and fast can only get you but so far in BKFC, and Trout was able to check off on every box to make himself into a complete fighter. Now, this is a developing story, so we'll see how far up the ladder he goes this and next year. Angulo, without gloves on, still looked incredibly slow, but like I said before, his opponent came in not respecting his power, tried to overwhelm him with punches, something that Alfredo took easily, to where Angulo had enough space to actually throw a loaded shot, which would floor Riggs, and that will be all she wrote. And on top of that, this is the slowest hands in boxing. For more installments, be sure to like, share, and if you're new, subscribe. Subscribe to the Patreon for Patreon-backed projects and early access. This video will be on the tale of Floyd Mayweather versus Ricky Hatton. I'm Office Hancho, and I'm out.